Welcome to Patchwork Pod. I'm your host, Lizette Palmer, and I'm here today with my friend Linda Vanderfort.
You say it way cooler than I do.
Oh, thank you. I was born in Namibia, which is Southern Africa, very strong Dutch influence. Lots of
Okay.
Afrikaans. And so while I can only speak English confidently, I can pronounce other things very well.
I like it.
Thank you. So Linda, can you give me your 30 to 60-second commercial?
My name is Linda. I own Bishop Arts Massage in Oak Cliff, and I want to use my talents for helping people feel better within their bodies, and also my experiences in being the person that shouldn't have made it but did. And I want to use that to help everybody else. I want to help their minds and their bodies. I am definitely the person that should have not done well. From drugs, prison, everything else. Like, I have all of the markers for I should be panhandling on the middle of the street with, dead flowers. But it's possible to overcome all of that. It's hard and it's scary and there's a lot of ramen noodles involved. But if you don't give up, you can do well. And not only doing well, I got to open my own business and I get to help other people through my business. And so everything I could have possibly wanted 20 years ago, I got with just a very rude U-turn of a detour to get there. I am not a bad person. I am a retired bad person. And there's so many things that I've done with my retirement. So I was actually talking to my mom about it, and she's like, "Well, are you gonna say all the things?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, because there have been times before that I've had other people be like, maybe you shouldn't tell people about that." I'm like, "Why? If anything that I've gone through can help somebody else or encourage somebody else to not give up, then why would I be silent?" She's like, "Well, because there's gonna be some people that think certain ways about you." I'm like, "Well, then I'm not for them." Yeah. I've got a friend that's we had a conversation last week. She's in recovery, she's doing great. And she said, "I want to recover loudly." So not only because I want to help other people, but because then I have more people holding me accountable. And I just love the way she said that. I want to recover loudly. It's like, okay, well, I want to thrive loudly because I went to prison twice. It was 10 years ago that I got out. So I am 7 years past the recidivism statistics. I should have gone back in 3 years after that. So I'm 7 years past that.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah, middle of this month. I think it's November 14th. Will be the 10-year anniversary of getting out of TDC and walking into Salvation Army on Harry Hines to start over.
Wow. How much before that do you want to talk about?
I'm wide open.
Everything?
Yeah,
I
I'm wide
mean,
open.
you want to start from the beginning?
Just so December 29th, 1982. No. The short version of I guess 17, 18, that was when I decided, can I cuss? That's when I decided I was just gonna really fuck everything up. But before that, like, I grew up in a wonderful Christian home, homeschooled until high school.
I was homeschooled till college. You were homeschooled,
Yep,
etc.
till 9th grade. And then went to Liberty Christian School, and then all of my problems before I graduated high school were 100% self-inflicted because my parents were right and smarter than me, but I thought the opposite. I was the textbook 15, 16-year-old that I knew everything and I was going to do everything. I ran away from home. I ended up going to a really sketchy person. Nothing happened, but there were some things like after I was found and they pressed charges against him for harboring a runaway, they were able to search his apartment, and I still don't know all the details and I haven't even asked, but my counselor when I was 17 told me that when they searched his apartment, they found a lot of sketchy things, and she said that the guy living across the hallway that he had told me was an ex-Navy SEAL or whatever, that my counselor told me that he was actually an undercover cop that was there to watch that guy because young girls kept disappearing under his hair. But I ran away to him because in 90, I don't know, mass 6, 7, I posted on the internet.
Yeah.
And then I had a dangerous home environment, which I didn't. I was just grounded. But a dangerous home environment, I needed to get out and I needed to be emancipated and I could babysit and I could cook and I could clean, I could do all these things. And he was the least creepy out of all the responses. And so I rode my little bicycle at midnight on one random day in January. And that's who I went with, who ended up being a dangerous person. So that happened. My parents ended up sending me to this wonderful place in East Texas called Heartlight. It's a residential counseling facility for troubled teens. So I was there for a year and a half. That last year, I got to go to the public school. So my 1 year of public school, I graduated. So I am a Hallsville Bobcat. And Hallsville, this is a very tiny town in East Texas. Like we're talking, if you're from there, you don't pronounce the S. You're from Hallville.
That's
Hallville.
Yeah.
One Light, one Dairy Queen. I think they have a Sonic now. But anyway, so when I graduated from that program, that was 5 days before I graduated high school. And then that summer was when I decided I was going to do all of the things. That's when I started smoking weed. I started drinking. I'm like, what's ecstasy? That sounds fun. Yeah. And so went down that rabbit hole. And, but yeah, that was mostly playing around with stuff. I did go to University of North Texas for a full half semester.
Nice.
But yeah, then I ended up going to cosmetology school, became a hairstylist. And it was during cosmetology school that my boyfriend at the time introduced me to meth. And that was that's where we went from. We're kind of going up and down. We're doing all right. We're doing okay. We're not doing great. We're doing okay. To fucking nosedive.
Yeah.
I mean, up until that point, I could do, to anybody that doesn't do drugs, this sounds insane, but I could do cocaine on the weekend and be fine for school on Monday. There was even some heroin snorting that happened. Fine for, Monday is go time. But meth, I couldn't stop. It was like everything just made sense.
When I
was on it. And so I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
Fun thing is, fast forward to, I think it was 7 years ago, I had a psychiatrist tell me that my ADHD is off the charts.
Oh.
And that it makes sense why methamphetamines was the only drug, even over heroin, the only drug that I couldn't stop because it was literally giving me the chemicals that I needed. And it was just in crazy unregulated doses. And that's why everything went wrong. But
that's so interesting, right? Sometimes I hear how people used to use cocaine to like get through their work days. Like it was so much more normalized. But even the way that people use nicotine, and when I hear about how people's brains are when they're on those drugs, I'm like, wait, that sounds amazing. As somebody, I also have ADHD, so my brain's always just like,
don't ever do meth.
Whoa.
just
stay away from it.
Don't do that.
And so I'm like, I understand the appeal, and like those are things that I've like learned about, later on in my life. So I think at this point I have more perspective on it, and I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
You're not gonna do that.
Right. I'm not gonna do meth. I'm like, maybe I should probably get medicated, but I won't do it myself. But I can see the appeal of like, if I could just make it all work, just with like one thing, taking one thing, that would be amazing.
Well, and it's crazy because I've had, I've known a lot of people that have done drugs, and they tend to, become horrible versions of themselves, right? And I didn't become a horrible person. I was kind of just the same person. Like I and especially when it devolved into where I only hung out with drug people, and this is when I entered my crime era. Like I was still the nice one, even when people would steal from me and whatever. Like I mean, because that's nobody that does meth and there's like and hangs out in a cluster of other meth people. Nobody has stuff for very long. Eventually, somebody's going to steal other things, and they're going to have to start back over. And that just in that culture is okay, and you're used to it, which is heartbreaking.
Unexpected.
Yeah, and it like, oh, well, that was my fault. I was in one hotel. I went to another hotel. I left my backpack there for too long, and it's gone. And well, that's on me. Shouldn't have left it. Looking back on it now, I'm like, that's insane. But at the time, it's like, yeah, shouldn't have done it. Yeah. But I didn't steal from other people. I didn't, I didn't do all the horrible things that other people did. Not to say that I wasn't a horrible person, because I was perpetuating crime and stealing people's credit card numbers. But yeah, it didn't change me as a person. It definitely made me more self-destructive, but it just made my, it's like if my brain was a Rorschach test, when I felt like when I was on it, all of a sudden it was a picture. It was an actual picture. And I couldn't explain that, because when I would try to explain it, I just sounded like a drug addict. I just needed my drug. Then I find out that I have ADHD off the freaking charts. I'm like, oh. So it was kind of helping. It was just the wrong, unregulated, un-FDA approved version of what I ended up. Because now I take Adderall, and it's so funny. My poor husband, he's so wonderful. We'll go to Aldi or any store.
Oh.
Any store. Oh, I know. Oh, I love that aisle. The aisle of shame. Oh, I love it. But and we'll pull in the parking lot, and he'll like, "Are you medicated?" I'm like, yes. Or good thing. And I start digging in my purse. So got on drugs in school. Ended up yep, meth is bad. I passed my test for cosmetology.
While you were high off my ass. Yeah.
And then there's kind of just some bumps and skips of things that happen over the next couple of years. And then the relationship I was in, we were very toxic to each other. And so at the apex of that toxicity, I found myself walking down the road, on the side of the road of in Rockwall, Texas. And I didn't know who to call, because I've been staying with the boyfriend and his parents. And so I called this guy that I had done drugs with, and he said, I told him I'm crying, and I told him what happened. He said, I'm sending somebody for you. Okay, mafia weirdo. I mean, he wasn't, but he just sounded very like, I'm just going to I'll send my driver. No, he picked me up in that Chrysler. But, and so it ended up that he was making credit cards. Also doing meth, but he was making credit cards. And
sounds very lucrative. I don't know exactly what that entails, but yeah.
Yes. So he was making credit cards, and it's funny. The only reason why I got his numbers, because we were doing drugs in the same place, and he said that he might have some work for me to do sometime. And I'm always suspicious. I'm like, what would I have to do? So, well, I would give you a handful of credit cards, and you would go into some stores, and you can buy whatever you want for yourself. All I want is get me $100 gift card from every store you go to. And I was like, can I use the cards you gave me? So yeah. Because then he would take those and sell them, or use them to get drugs, and then all that. So I later on, I can't remember if he said it to me or if I just overheard it or whatever, but that I was his cash cow, because we did the same drug, and I didn't look like I did the drug. So I was the perfect one to go in, and because you can't, most of the people that you see, especially on, dramatized things, like, you would not trust them with anything. And so anyway, so that's where I went to. That was the safest place I had at the time, other than going home, but I was too stubborn for that, because I was still doing drugs. So I linked up with him, and I would do that shopping stuff, and he had this software program where he would put in a credit card number, and it would spit out all of the credit card numbers within that series. There's 10,000 possible numerical combinations for every single credit card. So the software program would tell you which ones were the right ones. And then we had a number we could call to verify, or to, I don't even know. We would verify it for $1 to see if it was active. And if it was, then, I would highlight that number because I'd have, this crazy printout. And then I would highlight that number, and that would be one of the ones that were turned into credit cards. So after doing this for hours and hours, I started noticing a pattern. And I didn't tell him this. It wasn't until later when things just, and it's crazy to think that as a meth user in a already dicey situation, it got too dicey for me. So I ended up branching off on my own. And because when he was doing it, he would have people that, he would give cards to, and they would bring him back all the things. And there was just too many people. It made me nervous. So it was just my own thing, my own risk. Everything else, I got to do arts and crafts because to make the cards, there was, cutting and printing and things like arts and crafts, criminal arts and crafts. Yeah. So because I figured out the pattern from looking at all the printouts, so I didn't need the software because that was the thing, is I didn't have the software. But I think I recognize the pattern. It's this up and this down on the 10s, and on the 100s you do this.
Oh, your brain is amazing.
So when I called the same number, because I called it 10,000 times, and I knew it at that point. So when I tried it out with a random credit card number, I tried it out with what I thought would be the ones, and I was right. So I figured it out.
Wow.
So, and that was a time saver.
Yeah.
But I was still also hanging out with people that were doing meth and questionable things. So I started paying I hate to say it, but the ones that were just stealing purses or trying to break into cars or whatever, I would let them know, hey, if you run across a credit card, do what you want with it. When it's dead, give it to me and I'll give you a good one. Because all I needed was the first, there's 16, I needed the first 12. I needed the first 12, but also the last 4, which one to start with. So I could take any credit card number and make 9,999 other ones.
Wow.
And then arts and crafts.
That's amazing.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, the criminal offense. No way, any idea.
Do not,
But
0 out of 10, do
also,
not recommend.
Whoa, your brain's incredible.
I mean, homeschool. I bet you yours is too.
Right. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. My brain does not do patterns like that. My brain does other really cool things, but
Yep, it's the homeschool and the ADHD. I heard this great way of explaining it. It was a video, and it was a girl talking about having a late stage diagnosis for ADHD, and it was like a back and forth. And her friend says, "Well, but you know it now." He said, "Okay, but imagine that you drove a Chevelle, and for 30 years you've driven the Chevelle. That every time you get in it, at least 2 things go wrong. And some days it's easy. Like some days just the window doesn't roll down and the trunk doesn't close.
right.
But there are other times it's like, oh, cool, the transmission fell out. So you can imagine you deal with this for 30 years and people label you as irresponsible and unreliable when really it's just your car. And when you say I got car trouble, the response you get back is, well, everybody's got car trouble.
Right.
And everybody else is on time.
Yeah.
And then after 30 years of this, you find out about a Tesla that drives and diagnoses itself, and if it breaks, they bring you another one to use until yours is fixed. And then you find out that everybody else that has been saying, well, everybody has car trouble and we're all here, and then they were all driving Teslas, and you assume they were all driving Chevelles and dealing with the same thing you were, and you've got all these tools to fix everything because you're used to having to fix everything. So you have all these tools, and you've upgraded your tools, and you're doing everything you can, and it still breaks. So you still have 2 issues per drive. And then you find out about Teslas, and you realize, shit, I could have been having a Tesla this whole time. And that's what it's like finding out you have ADHD late stage. Like,
Yeah.
I've had all these tools that I've been improving, and my toe still twitches because I knew that if I let my hands go wild, either on drugs or even when I was younger, that I looked like a maniac. So I would just start tapping my toe.
Your big toe?
Uh-huh.
That's Can we tap me? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would do so that way I wouldn't be flailing my arms around or having to be pacing or whatever. I would just tap my toe. Like, it was a conscious decision. I was like, I really want to walk around. I'm not going to walk around. I'm going to tap my toe.
Mm.
And that's what I would do to try to hide the fact that I wanted to run laps around the kitchen, but I can't because we're at a dinner party.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Mm.
yeah, late stage ADHD.
Add ADHD to put a pin in that list.
But yeah, so that was my crime, and then I ended up moving back to Denton in with my family. I was still doing drugs. I'm in love with your dog.
She's wonderful.
But I was still doing drugs, but hiding it. Still doing crime. And I probably wouldn't have gotten away with it except for the boyfriend. And, well, the theory is, because I saw one report that I wasn't supposed to see that said that my name was mentioned from an inmate that was in Rockwall County. And the same boyfriend that I was with that ended up me walking on the road was in jail in Rockwall County. So I am assuming,
Yeah.
unconfirmed.
Good guess.
Unconfirmed, but the reports when I got arrested, I found out that so I was doing all this stuff in Denton County, but they didn't know who this person was. They didn't have a name for it until they got a tip from somebody in Rockwall County Jail or Rockwall City Jail or whatever that Linda Lee was committing some fuckery.
Just the minor fuckery.
And so then they had my photo, and then they could compare that photo with all of this video. Because I didn't try to hide anything. I didn't try to disguise anything because I had no reason. They had no reason to know me. I mean,
Right.
this was 2008. Like,
Right.
sure, now it'd be like facial recognition. The stoplight knows who I am. But in 2008, we weren't there yet. So, but they had a name, and then they had an ID. So I ended up with 5 warrants from Denton County. Which then also ended up being 5 in Denton County plus 2 for Dallas County. 1 for tampering with a government document because I ended up being caught with an ID that I'd made. Oh yeah, because I started doing that. And a forgery of a financial institution. And then also a forgery of a financial institution in Collin County. So now I have 8 warrants in 3 counties. Yeah. So I made it about 6 months of running.
Wow. That is I'm sure a very different life from what homeschool Christian little Linda thought was gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was gonna be a school teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on the run for about 6 months, and then I mean on the run, I just mean like I didn't drive anywhere. I didn't, I was very, very careful with everything I did. And then I actually went to a ministry event thing, ended up talking with some people, and I was telling them my life story. And of course, growing up in a Christian home, I would have told you I've been a Christian since I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling them my story, and one of the ladies, when I was all done, she said, it sounds like you kind of just been living your life for you. Are you done? Yeah. All right. She's like, are you ready to surrender? I was like, oh God, to God, yes. I was like, I've got felonies. I'm not ready for that yet. Like, yeah. And then so November 30th of 2011, even though I thought I'd been a Christian since like 86, I didn't become a Christian until November 30th of 2011.
Wow.
So a couple days later, I went to my parents' house, and I think my sister was there. My brother was still living at home. And I told them about this, and I said, okay, so guys, I got 8 felonies and 3 warrants. I mean, 8 felonies in 3 counties. I'm going to try to make it through Christmas. was like, actually, I'm gonna make it through the new year because nothing happens between Christmas and that. But I want to spend Christmas with my family because I don't know what it's gonna look like when I turn myself in.
Mm.
Like, so let's. I'm gonna try to make it to Christmas and not get arrested. And then my birthday's the 29th. That doesn't matter because New Year's. And then I wanted to make it to the first Monday after New Year's because that's when like turn to business as usual. So January 3rd of 2011, I made it. And I turned myself in.
Mm.
So that started the first state jail tour. I ended up doing 11 and a half months, which is crazy. So Denton County ended up giving me 10 months for all 5. And then I was sent to the TDC processing thing, and then they sent me to Dawson. And then Dallas County picked me up from Dawson. So then I went to Lou Sterrett, which was terrifying because since I was coming from a TDC facility, even though I had white collar crimes, they put me in North Tower where all the scary people are. So I got to hang out there for a month while they figured out those charges there. And I think they gave me like one was 6 months, one is 7, but they ran it concurrent from the day I turned myself in. So didn't change my time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Collin County picked me up from Dallas County. So then I went there to deal with that one charge. And they ended up giving me, they didn't start my time from when I got arrested. I'm still not sure why. So the sentence they gave me ended up extending my time by like 2 weeks. Nothing crazy.
Huh.
So I got out December of 2011 and moved home. And this is where I'm about to get spicy.
Oh.
So the whole 11 and a half months that I was locked up, I've got a plan. Like I'm going home. I'm moving in with my parents. I'm going to stay and I'm going to put down roots instead of moving every couple of weeks. I'm going to build up my style, my hairstylist business. I'm going to get clients. This is my starting point. Like I'm going to roots, clients, hairstylist. I get to do art with people's hair and make people feel beautiful. Like it checks all the boxes. And I was really good at it. So I get out, I do my continuing education that was due, and when I hit send, they don't accept it because in 2011, they changed the rules so you can be a felon and have your trade license. But the second that you step foot onto penitentiary grounds, you can't. So because I chose to take the time because I just wanted it over with and less money and all that, just let's get this done, knocked out. I'll be here however long you need. Couldn't do hair. I went through the process of getting approval to apply for a new license, which I ended up being granted it, but that meant I would have had to retake my written and my practical, which I'd done 8 years before that. I don't remember how to do a pin curl or whatever. So I went back to bartending, which was great until a year later when I ran into old friends and then relapsed and then did credit cards again. And then the 8 charges before, they were all state jail felonies. So like baby felonies. You still go to TDC, but they're the lowest. What I ended up getting arrested for was a what is it? Class 1. So when there's murder and there's like a capital murder and then there's whatever is right underneath capital. That's what I got arrested with because I had over 500 credit card numbers. Whoa. I had a book like that because it was like Sudoku.
Right.
You know, I would have all these pages that would have credit card numbers and I would just, go through the pattern.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually use them. But because I had over 500 credit card numbers, that was a class 1 felony. So that was a year and a half, which ended 2 weeks short of 10 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Which should have been so much worse.
Yeah. And you, I mean, your life now, I mean, it's like you take snapshots of each of these different places of your life, and it's like you're a completely different person in each one. I don't want to like vast. I know, I'm sure there's a lot that's happened in the last 10 years. So, if there's stuff from there that you would like to talk about, we definitely can. But I know, like, today, the work that you're doing is so interesting and important. And I'm curious, like, what got you to your business and doing massage therapy
Mhm.
um and all of that. And I mean, I need to come back to see you because my back is like, even today I've got like this thing in my my shoulder that I'm like, oh no.
I know, the way you were
Mm.
sitting, I was wondering because it's kinda here. That's
Yeah.
what it looked like.
It's just kind of all ooh,
Yeah.
up and down. Why did you decide to go this way instead of hair or other cosmetology stuff? Um And, like, why did you decide to start a business instead of you were working for Massage Envy,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, tell me a little bit about that transition.
So it's funny. So, my best friend is Leslie, and she's married to another one of my best friends, Rain. Rain was a massage therapist for a long time, and he, broke his collarbone, so he was in a sling, so everything in it, like, his shoulder blade and everything else was angry for being in a sling, so he was directing me just where to put my elbow,
Mhm.
and I was helping him one night when we were just down in Bishop Arts, and I was putting the elbow down. He was like, "Okay," I felt it let go. I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Do you want me to get the other one?" He said, "What other one?" I said, "Well, you got one here too." And so he said, "You can feel that?" I said, "Yeah." So I did elbowed that one, and then we were done having our drink afterwards. He said, "Have you ever thought about going to massage therapy school?" I was like,
Mm,
"There are whole ass therapists that can't feel things like that, and you've never done anything." And I think this was maybe a month after my husband had deployed.
mm.
So I talked to him about that night, and 10 days later, I was starting massage therapy school.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you like, it was like
Actually,
they were like
2 years from today. I started on Halloween,
mm,
but that was like a goofy day. November 1st was like an actual day. Like before there was, from day 1 was costumes and snacks, and then November 1st was when I had to do my first massage.
mm,
Yeah.
you were 2 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, you like, literally felt like a tight muscle in his back that
Mhm,
he had pointed out?
mhm.
I wonder how I mean, I think about how you recognize the patterns in the critical.
I know. Now I'm doing it with bodies.
And now you're doing it with bodies. It's like,
Well, and
yeah,
that's why I wondered, because the way you were walking and the way you held something earlier is because I can see things.
you
I'm like the kid from Sixth Sense. I'm like, I see issues.
yeah, just look at how I'm standing and then tell me what's going
Uh-huh.
on. Yeah, it's crazy.
Mhm.
And since then and so then you decided to start a business.
Well, because okay, so before I'd even graduated school, one of my regulars from the local Oak, who also became a friend, she opened up a med spa in Arlington, and I'd seen the med spa, and I messaged her. I was like, "If you need a massage therapist, I'm in school right now." And the person that they had didn't work out. She ended up reaching out to me, and so I think it was March 10th or something of 23 that I went to go talk to her. And I mean, the place was amazing, and I loved everything that she wanted to do. And she offered me a job
Mm,
right then and there. And so because of I was working underneath somebody else's license, so I could still practice, massage even before I finished, and, so yeah, I started out in a med spa, and it was great, and the place does amazing things, and they have great deals and all of that, but I was not a good salesperson. I wasn't, like, I wanted to fix people's bodies. And especially because most of the time massage, sometimes people don't wanna talk at all. So there wasn't a whole lot of option to be like, "Have you thought about Botox?"
yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't think I hit my goal ever, ever. And I was kinda getting burnt out because I felt like I wasn't doing enough, but I knew I was doing things for my clients, but I ended up leaving there to go to Massage Envy. Um I was concerned that my longevity and my career was gonna be greatly stunted if I was doing 8 massages a day with 2 minutes in between.
Right.
And, So yeah, so I actually I asked my best friend and her husband, who kind of directed me on this path, about renovating the other half of their duplex. And they talked about it, and I ended up doing that, which was great because, my husband travels for work, and, sometimes he, like, winter weather missions, he gets activated by the National Guard. And so, I'm able to have a place that's closer to Bishop Arts that I can stay, because I have to live there too to, be able to work out of my home. So, I do stay there on occasion, and I got to turn it into Bishop Arts Massage, or BAM, because that's way shorter.
Yeah.
And, um, it ha it I would say that it's been a struggle, but, most businesses, when you start, you don't start making money for, like, a year to 2 years. I know restaurants is 2 years. I think massage is a little bit shorter, kind of, but I have been self-sustaining from the first month that I opened, and I think a lot of that is the Oak Cliff Ladies Club.
Mm.
Because of the support that I got. I mean, I closed out all 40 of my clinical hours in 3 weeks,
Oh.
because I posted about it on Oak Cliff Ladies Club, and I was booked solid.
Yeah.
I ended up on graduation. That was one of the 4 awards that I got, was Clinic Master, because I did it faster than anybody's ever done.
That's amazing.
It's Oak Cliff Ladies Club.
Yeah.
I had the people.
Oak Cliff Ladies Club is the best. Oh,
They are. They are. It was too warm now, but when I left, I had my pink jacket on.
I I just remember when I came to see you and you were working on my back, I felt so much care going into the whole situation, and I think that would be a lot harder to replicate if you're in a place that's not your own.
Mhm.
Um, but can you tell me about the types of transformations you see in people when they're able to use their body again?
Okay, so also, I have a great chiropractor
Mm,
that I work with. I am 100% unbiased when I say that she is my cousin-in-law, but also she is amazing. Like, I was having tingling in my fingers. Like, I was already Googling carpal tunnel, like,
mhm.
what is happening in my body. I saw her for one adjustment,
Mm,
and everything was fixed.
yeah.
Like, it was amazing. And her name is Kayla Talent. She's right on Jefferson and Polk. And I have one client who, he's a tattoo artist at Saints and Sinners, and I see him almost every week, which makes sense because tattoo artists, I mean, they work, their body position is a question mark.
Yes. That's my
And
body position when I'm working, I do like that.
you're gonna
Mm,
kind of readjust.
yeah.
Um, and he went and saw her right after getting a massage from me, and he texted me the next day and was like, "I have a new body."
Mm,
And I love hearing that. And I love being able to help people. I worked on somebody, day before yesterday, and we got her shoulder to be able to reach up. And when she was done with the massage, came out, and after payment and everything, she was sitting, we were talking. She was like, it's so cool to be able to do this, which kind of makes me feel like a sorcerer, which is great because I'm a giant nerd, but I get to help people do things they couldn't do before. And I love that. But like I said, before drugs and crime, I wanted to be either a kindergarten teacher, or I wanted to teach senior English.
mm.
I wanted to impact, either you're just starting out and I'm going to help set the tone for the rest of your school, or you hate writing, you hate homework, but I'm going to make you love it. I wanted to make an impact. And I get to make an impact all the time, even if it's little things like, I can turn my head. I don't have to do the Batman turn. I mean, that's huge. I mean,
Yes.
even driving, you can't check your blind spot like this all the time, but to be able to turn your head, I'm
Mhm.
saving lives.
So, I know we have that, like, 10-year period since prison. I'm sure it wasn't like you got out and it was immediately like, "Oh, it's all great now." Like, I'm sure you
I was
still
married in that 10 years.
yeah, that's a big one. And I'm sure, like, you didn't just decide, like, "Oh, I'm no longer addicted to meth." Like, what was what was recovery like? And then, like, creating a new version of yourself. Well, we can maybe talk about the recovery first, and then we can talk about versions of ourselves, so, like, self-identity and
So when I got out, I'm now leaving with 9 felonies total. Besides just the third time offender, like, that's when you can get thrown 25 years, so there is no play. There is no, "I'm just gonna do some drugs on the weekend," like, no.
mm-mm,
Uh-uh. Um, and one of the things I knew was that as much as I hated to be away from my family, I couldn't go back to Denton. Too many people I could run into, too much temptation. I didn't trust myself. So that's why I picked Dallas for the Salvation Army. And a good friend of mine hooked me up with a place to stay with her brother, who had a 2-bedroom house. And so I stayed there, and she let me drive her and her husband's extra car. So those first 6 months, I had a car to drive to go to work. I worked at a telemarketing place for a little while. I was a waitress. I ended up meeting the guy that I would marry, um, and, uh, and his 2 kids, who were, I think, 6 and 8 when I met them. And, so I got married, like, 6 months after I'd gotten out, which is too soon. I should but don't. The people that I have in my life now, Caleb and Tyler, are definitely worth some of the poor decisions that I made. But, so yeah, so got married, became a stepmom, went full mom status. Like, I got married in July, and that Easter was my first Easter of having kids, and so they've got a school thing, and we're supposed to bring eggs, and so I'm on Pinterest, and I saw these really cute eggs that were green but had little bands, the purple, the blue, orange, and reds, and with little googly eyes glued on them, so they look like little Ninja Turtles. So my favorite story is we were at this crappy apartment, and I'm outside having all of these eggs in the grass, and I'm spray painting them Ninja Turtle green. And I had more than one neighbor walk by and look at the eggs, look at me, and look back at the eggs, because they don't know they're gonna be Ninja Turtles. I just look like an asshole that is spray painting eggs grass colored. And then the first kid birthday I had to bring stuff to school, I spent 16 hours creating cake pops with fondant and everything that looked like little BB-8s.
mhm.
Still, I still put up on my Instagram all the time. I'm like, BB-8,
You
and they're
you did that.
impressive.
That's cool.
I loved being a mom. And, so, we were married for 5 years. If the kids hadn't been there, I probably would have left much sooner.
Mm,
But he was struggling with finding his identity and where he needed to be and what he wanted to do, and so there was a lot of jobless times, and at that point, I'd gone from waiting tables to bartending to managing, and it was still just barely enough. But, um, then COVID happened, and still pushing through, but I think it was April 1st or 2nd that I was officially furloughed from my job.
mm,
And that was the catalyst that I needed to tell him that I was leaving, because I didn't know what was going to happen with the world. I knew that all we did was fight. And if I was furloughed, then we were just going to be in this 900 square foot apartment alone to fight. So I left.
mm.
That began our separation. And I eventually moved in with my mom in Denton and went back to work at the local Oak in Oak Cliff, and because she needed help, because I was already kind of managing their website still from when I worked there before, and she wanted to change the website to where the to-go option was there, so that way she could still be open. I think she was closed for a month, and it was either end of April or end of May that we were able to open back up. And then through that whole process, because I was just gonna be there just to help get to that point, But then I was able to stay on for longer, and I was there until they closed because a name that I won't drop, Alamo, Manhattan. Bulldoze, Local Oak, and 10 Bells.
Yeah. And now we have apartment complexes and parking garages.
I don't know if your camera is flared.
Um,
But yeah, so that's how we got. That's how I ended up coming back to Oak Cliff, was going back to work at Local Oak, and then I left my mom because I was driving from Denton to Local Oak every day. Totally worth it. But then August, I got my apartment in Louisville because I figured that was halfway. Because in 2019, my dad passed away. So I wanted to be, that was close to mom, close to work, or 30 minutes each way. And then actually we're coming up on an anniversary because I met my husband on election day. The shortest version of the story is we knew a lot of the same people, and when I drink too much, the people you may know section of Facebook is my best friend. I'm like, we have 28 mutual friends. We should definitely know each other. Friend request. And I did that with him, and he ended up messaging me back or messaging me after that. And I told him, I was like, hey, if you ever want to come to Local Oak, because I'm either in Denton or Local Oak. If you ever want to come to Local Oak, we can swap stories. I would love to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. And that was the end of October of 2020. So he made it on election night, and we were dead because it was election night. And we spent all 4 hours just talking. Like, I didn't have to do anything. There was nobody, there was no disgruntled people, there was no food to run. We were so dead. I just stood on my side of the bar talking to him. He ended up coming back the next day, and the same thing happened. He came back the next day, and the same thing happened. And at this point, I have already friend zoned him.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so we became best friends, and I think it was November, so December, January, February, March, April, May. So it took him almost 7 months to realize that he had feelings for me. So if it took him 7, it took me 4.
Oh.
He asked me if he could talk to me, and yeah, we talk all the time. He was like, all right, well, I'm gonna come to Local Oak tomorrow. Okay, I get off at 4, so he came up there, and we had this conversation that he started off by saying, I figured out I'm in love with you.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And there was a whole lot more to that, but I was like, okay, so we can't start this when I am seeing somebody else. I was like, I need to figure that out.
Sure.
It only took a couple days. And then he came up to Local Oak, and he had the greatest. He gave me this card, and I opened it up, and it was R2D2 on the front with a little heart. Nerd. And then he had the whole thing, will you be my girlfriend? Check yes, check no. And I mean, it's crazy how alike we are. Like, he was also homeschooled. He's also the oldest of 4. There's just the things that we have in common. We call them brain jinxes because there are so many times that he says something that I'm thinking. And so it was great. It's perfect. And we got married.
All your Firefly paraphernalia fit right in with his.
And now we have, now the extra room that was going to be my bedroom is now our nerd nest, where we have all of our comic books and our Sting from Fellowship of the Ring, the Sting replica, and the Star Wars and the Star Trek Next Generation, and my I Will Kill You With My Brain is all in the nerd nest.
That's beautiful. Nerd love is a whole different level, and it's beautiful. I love that so much, and that's just like a whole different snapshot. Like, you've literally lived so many different lives, and none of them could have happened without the previous levels, but none of them could have been predicted if you were looking at the one before. Do you ever look at all of this together and think, what the, or like,
All the time. All the time.
like how
Especially coming up
you,
on the anniversary of 10 years of walking into the Salvation Army.
yeah,
Like, we're 2 weeks away from that 10-year anniversary, which means we're 3 weeks away from the 10-year anniversary of Jason Witten serving me Thanksgiving food at Salvation Army. And when I think of that, and when I think of where I am now, yeah, no, there's absolutely a bunch of what the fuck moments.
is there anything that you think you could have said to your teenage self? Like, if you went back and talked to your teenage self, is there anything you think you could say to her to be like, "Hey, don't do all that," like,
Don't do meth. Right. Don't do meth.
or would you go through it again to be where you are now?
So,
Or would she even have believed you? This is something I asked my brother because we obviously live very similar lives, and I think all the time, like, is there anything I could have said to my teenage self to make me think differently? I don't know.
probably not, because I was really involved in youth groups. So I had a lot of people that were just, not old, but older than me enough and wise, and that were telling me things that were just in one ear and out the other. I don't think there's anything that could have been said. I remember telling my mom once that, or I think it was my dad. I remember telling my dad once that when life was good at that time, and telling him that if I could change what I had done, if I had the option, I wouldn't, because I was so happy for where I was now. And I think that's kind of a common thought process. But he gave me a new example on it. He said, "Well, that's kind of selfish." I said, "What do you mean?" So, "We all hurt a lot because of what you did." And I was like, "Ew." So if I could go back and tell my teenage self anything, it's a tough choice. I probably might try to intervene to protect my family from the hurt that I caused them and the friends hurt that I caused. Even if that meant possibly not having what I have now, because I did a lot of damage. I was a fucking hurricane. And so I love what I have now, but I wish I could have gotten here without hurting them like I did.
Yeah.
Um, but I also don't think my stubborn ass would have listened. Even if I was sitting from myself, looking like an older version of myself. I'm like, "Do you see these lines? Like, this is what happens. Do you see this red hair? This is fake. You're mostly gray by now because of things you're about to do. So don't do that." And I think I still would have been cocky enough to be like, "Yeah, I'll figure it out. I got it."
You are very smart. I mean, you're still very smart, obviously. And smart kids are the worst.
Right? We are terrible
Yeah.
because we think that we'll figure it out.
Right. And we've been taught to be resourceful and think for ourselves in a lot of ways.
And sometimes you use it for good, and sometimes you use it for evil, and end up spending $300,000 at one store in 9 months.
You've all been there.
Yeah, when the arresting detective told me I'd spent over $300,000 at one store that has multiple locations, which I'm not going to mention, but it's a great store. But they have everything. But anyway, I said, "Are you sure?" He was like, "I got a file on you. I am sure." I was like, "Okay, okay."
He did his research.
But I actually ended up reaching out to him a couple years after I had been out, just let him know. It's like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I just want to let you know that I've just passed the mark for recidivism for a second trip.
Yeah.
And I took a lot of what you said to heart, and I haven't done any drugs, and I'm nailing it on being on community supervision, and just want to let you know I'm doing good."
Yeah.
And he emailed back. He said he was really happy.
That's really wonderful. I'm sure he doesn't get those emails very often.
No, I think I connected with over 100 women between both times of being locked up, the 11 and a half months and then the year and a half. I connected with over 100 women on Facebook during that time. And same thing around that same mark, the 2 or 3 year mark of being out. I after seeing yet another post from one of those hundreds saying, "Hey, this isn't fill in the blank. She's in jail. If you want to write to her, here's her number. Here's the thing." And I'd seen so many of them. I ended up making a Facebook post saying, "Hey," and I tagged all 98 of the people remaining. Say, "Hey guys, we're all going through it. We've all been there, which means we're likely to go back. And so if anybody needs anything, like I have no money, but I do have a car. So if you need to ride somewhere, you need to go somewhere safe, like I'm your person, like let's help each other. Let's connect. Let's do what needs to be done." And out of the 98, I think 20 of them were in a place to see it. So that's 80%. 80% either couldn't see it or weren't on this planet anymore. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And part of it is because I don't believe that we as a country, as a state, whatever level you want to put it at, I don't think that there's a whole lot being done to set up people leaving for good. Because my first time before I relapsed, I left. I was going to be a hairstylist. I was going to put down roots. I was going to be involved in my community. I was going to be involved in my church. I was going to do hair. I was going to offer free hair services for homeless people. Like, I'm going to make a difference. Nope, you don't have a license.
Yeah.
Why are you going to take away my life? I worked for that. Don't take that away. Yeah. And there's just other things like that. Never mind the fact that I can't work for Applebee's or be a sales associate at Hot Topic because of my background, but I can run for president.
I'm so interested in this idea of identity and like I think there's a lot of times where people will end up in situations and like in bad situations and then it's like, well, this is just how their life is gonna go for forever. And so not only are they in a tough position from like a job perspective, because if you can't work a Hot Topic, like where
Or Applebee's.
or Applebee's, where are you gonna work? Um, it's a lot harder for their community to support them from like if somebody just sees them from the outside and they're like, oh well, this person is like this. I'm just gonna write them off. Um, but that's not always the case. Um, like how can people who have not been through that be more I wanna know, like, how can I do a better job of supporting people who are in hard places while still maintaining good boundaries for myself? Because I am not good at boundaries. But, um, I'm always like, "Oh, I wanna help people and also, like, take care of my family." And I'm so interested in your perspective on that.
So I have an interesting soapbox it's a thing that I have, I don't know, created in my brain. So the concept is, let's say that emotions can be measured in units. So we're just going to call them emotional units. So let's say you have a set number of emotional units that you get to spend throughout your lifetime.
This sounds like a video game.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, so you've got a certain number of emotional units that you get to spend within your lifetime. So you have to be a good steward. You have to be careful about where you're willing to expend those emotional units. Like 10 years ago, or make it better, 8 years ago, when I was willing to yell and scream at my ex-husband while we were fighting, I was, well, let him go, burn him. I am not that same person. There are situations in my life that have happened just in the last couple years that I've looked at and decided that they were not worth the emotional units.
Mhm.
So I think that that has an interesting relationship with boundaries because boundaries are the fences that you create around yourself to protect yourself.
Right.
So at one point in my life, I would have said that fence that protects myself has a gate. So that way I can let people in if I want to help. No, the fuck it doesn't. There is no gate. That fence protects you. When you want to help somebody else, you leap over your own fence and do what you need to do. But the minute that it is taking more emotional units from you than you have in your excess reservoir that you have for other people, then you leap back over your fence because you got to take care of you. Besides just that, it's like the pitcher of water. If you're constantly pouring in to other people and you're not taking the time to get back within your boundary fence to refill up your pitcher, you're going to run out of water for anybody else, and you're not going to have anybody, you're not going to have any for yourself.
Yeah, and I guess wants not everybody wants to be helped, but also, um, yeah, I feel like the people that we personally are able to make an impact on, it's gonna be different from person to person. Like, the people that you're able to, quote, unquote, "help," it's gonna be different from the people that I'm able to help.
Mhm.
And so, um, I think it's important to recognize that. And also, like, it takes work to figure out, who am I gonna be able to make a difference for without burning myself out? Like, I I I love a savior
You can't run out of your own pitcher.
You can't run out of your own pitcher, but I wanna be perceived as somebody that can help anybody,
Mhm.
but that's not true.
I mean,
Um,
you can help anybody
sure.
as long as you are taking the time to recharge and fill yourself back up, and that can only happen within that fenced boundaries of yourself.
Right. Yes. Well, so I wanna ask more about your faith journey, because it sounds like your faith journey has been ongoing even though it's different from where it started. I also recognize, as somebody who grew up in a pretty, like, conservative homeschool Christian life, that things like boundaries were so nebulous growing up. Like, we didn't know, um, how to set boundaries outside of, like, this is what you have to do because this is what the Bible says, or this is what your church says, or whatever. So then, as soon as you don't have those things in place anymore, it's suddenly like, "Wait, wait, what do I do? Like, where are those boundaries? Who am I?"
There's almost this mindset of if you can't help anybody else because your pitcher's empty, and I hate to say this, I mean, the worst thing for Christianity are the Christians,
Mm,
and I hate that because I love Jesus, and some of his followers are assholes,
yes.
and that does not bode well for Jesus.
No, there's a lot of stuff that I see today that I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is not something Jesus would be into, just, like,
No.
based on the things that he said in the Bible.
No, no. I forget if it was junior high or high school, but I remember hiding so many of the struggles that I was dealing with when I had unlimited resources through youth group leaders and the like to reach out to, but I stuffed it all in
Ugh.
because bad company corrupts good morals. And I was a homeschool kid that just wanted friends
Mhm.
and wanted connection. And so I didn't share any of my struggles. I just stuffed them all in and became a volcano because I wanted to be accepted and I didn't want to be considered bad company.
Wow.
And so Christians a lot of times do not bode well for Jesus.
No. I literally I was journaling earlier, and I was thinking about, like, um, I feel like each episode of this podcast, there's gonna be things I talk about the same. But I've been talking with my therapist about shadow work and trying to understand that more, because I am very much a person who's like, if I try to think about what my flaws are, I can think of the surface level ones, but I have a harder time finding the deeper ones, because my brain's like, "No, we're fine. We're good. We're doing great." Because my younger brothers were homeschooled, but they went to public high school, and they had kind of a similar experience to you, where it was like, "Oh, look at this beautiful new world." And I was homeschooled all the way through to college,
It's like Aladdin, a brand new world.
but not even that. I stayed very much, like, within the boundaries. Like, the appearance was that I was, like, doing everything that I was supposed to do, but I was very all of my rebellion was, like, very deceptive. Like, as long as I could get away with something, I was like, "No, let's try it out." So for me, it was like, I wanna I wanna be a rebel, but I don't want anybody to know that I'm trying to be a rebel.
Yes. I'm rebelling for me.
Right. I am
all jaywalking right now.
yeah. Oh, and so I just was, yeah. Oh, where was I gonna go with that? We were just talking about stuff about
Faith journey
yeah,
and the boundaries and
for
the
Jesus.
because we're supposed to help everybody else, but then we steal our own reserves to try to help everybody else because we feel like that's what we're supposed to do. Feed the hungry, be for the widows and the orphans.
The ADHD conversation map.
Oh my gosh. So
Lord.
my friend Starla, a lot of times we have conversations. She's like, why was I saying that? It's 3. I'm like, okay, because we were at the pool and we were talking about this, and then we got to Brandon, and then we went to earrings, and she's like, oh yeah, the earrings. Yeah.
Well, and so I think I got on the deception thing. Like my rebellion was deceptive. Yours was kind of covered up for different reasons, but all of it was like, there are certain things that we can't do because if we do them, it's sinful and blah blah blah. And so it just like ignites this curiosity. There's like, well, what is it really
What
like?
do you
And
think?
I am very smart. Can I just
Can I
around
dabble?
right.
Well, and you can dabble until you can't.
And ooh, yeah, don't do math.
Don't do meth. I feel like that's gonna be the theme. Like you're gonna recreate this whole thing, and there's gonna be so many moments of don't do meth.
Whatever else you take away from this conversation, the number one, please do not
Don't do
do
meth.
math.
Especially if you have ADHD.
Or no, just kidding.
Yeah.
No.
No. Go see a psychiatrist. There are regimented FDA approved ways of handling your condition that makes your brain spicy.
Yeah.
Don't do meth.
Don't do math. And so all of that back to where we are. So faith journeys have evolved. Oh, I was also going to say, I'm very thankful that my parents kind of like, we all kind of deconstructed, maybe not at the same time, but in a linear way, parallel to each other. So I've been able to go back and have conversations with my parents about some of these things about like, oh, how did it affect who I am today to not be able to talk about, you know, sex or pornography or like all of these things that were like big button issues. But I still think about how those things back in like high school affected who I am today and how I perceive the world. Um, and so obviously playing the what do you think about all of that? Obviously playing the what if game is always kind of silly because it's pointless. But I'm so curious. Like I always think like if we didn't have this version of cultural Christianity that we have now, like how would that have changed whether or not you did drugs? Or like if you did drugs, like would you have approached it differently? Or like would you have known like if you had been able to have honest conversations about the issues you were having, like where would you even be today?
The faith journey is huge because there are so many people out there that are giving up their emotional units because they feel like they have to.
Yes. That's where we were going.
Yes. Because well, the Bible says I need to.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if you're gonna go on that track, so if you're giving up all of your internal resources because you think the Bible tells you to, are you also hanging out with the people that the devout would turn away?
Mm. And the other thing, the other place that I was thinking of with that is because we grew up with this just completely open gate, we did not learn the skill of discernment in how to approach different situations and different people. Like I have this memory, I still sometimes when I'm back in my hometown, I will drive past a house. I remember like being a teenager and doing outreach on behalf of a church where we would like go to people's houses and knock on doors and be like, here's this church. And this one lady was like, oh, you want to come? Do you want to like, I would love to talk more. And we just like went into this random lady's house and we're having a conversation with her. Turns out she had a drug problem that we as teenagers were not at all equipped to deal with. But we were like, we have the power of the Lord. We have Jesus. And so like ended up inviting her to church. She came to church with my family. And at one point we were talking about something, and I remember my mom like pulling me back, like pulling me out of a conversation and being like, I don't think you guys need to be having that conversation. And I was just like, oh, we were just talking about the Lord and her life and all of that. And I had no concept of like you have to put a space between yourself and other people. So
It's the boundaries.
the boundaries, I love this idea of emotional units. How do you choose where to spend your units?
Well, and here's it's a biblical principle,
Mm.
because you have to be a good steward of everything you possess, and that's not just monetary. You have to be a good steward of your emotional units. Like my dad gave me the most powerful word in the English language. If somebody is coming at you with some craziness, whether it's in text or whether it's in person, and they are wanting you to spend your emotional units on the situation, and you know that you can't, but you can't be rude and just say nothing. So the most powerful word in the English language is noted.
Noted.
Yeah, you spoke some words.
I acknowledge.
Yes,
I use
no,
that sometimes.
yes, you spoke. I'm not jumping in that pool with you, but I heard you.
I was watching The Office yesterday. Are you in Office?
I love The Office.
And it's the episode where they have to go through like CPR training because Stanley had a heart attack because Dwight set up the little alarm. And Dwight is told he needs to give a formal statement of apology. And so he just stands up with this letter and says, "This is my statement of apology." And then he wants people to sign it. And that's what that makes me think of. Like, okay. Yes, that's good. I love that.
You have to be a good steward of everything you possess, and that doesn't mean monetary. That doesn't mean, possessions. That also means your emotional units. So sometimes you have to choose. Am I going to spend emotional units on this? No, noted. Or you don't even have to say a word. You can just say a tone. And that's enough.
That's enough.
And that's enough, which is really funny because my husband now knows that when I say noted, that means fuck you. But
That's funny.
But that's also with anger.
Sure.
When I was using that in terms of a turbulent ending of a relationship and somebody trying to tell me about myself and all these things that weren't true. And at the beginning, I was trying to argue back, like, no, that's not the way it was. And then I realized that no matter what I said, I wasn't going to change that person's opinion. And so that's when I started replying with,
I used to
noted.
to change people's opinions.
I know, but
It's another homeschool thing.
I know. It is. But you're just burning emotional units. You're setting them on fire. They're doing no good. You get no return on them. That's not being a good steward. You just use half an emotional unit and you say noted. And then if they continue on, they're the crazy one. And you get to still be like, I hear you.
But you've already shut that gate.
Yeah, I may not agree. I may not agree with you, but I understand that's how you feel.
Yeah.
And as a homeschool kid, it took me till 41 to figure that out. But you have to be careful because the more emotional units you spend, the less you have for yourself. And unless you get a daily allotment, if you spend it all, that's why you can't go to sleep at night. That's why you're going over these conversations, because you don't have the extra, emotional unit and a half that you need to calm your own mind and go to sleep well.
Yeah.
Leave yourself a unit and a half.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're waking up every 2 hours. Nobody likes that.
No.
Nobody's going to feel that way.
Some of us do it because they have a 3-year-old. But
I have dogs, and
I
I'm
say
still
emotional units for them too.
Yeah.
Because they have a required number of emotional units. You have a required number. It's like,
and theirs are probably more than you have.
oh my God.
All this. Yes. So you gotta be wise about where you spend it. And it's a biblical concept.
Yeah.
Even if emotional units didn't exist in the Bible, it's still, you have to be a good steward of what you've been given, and what you've been given are your personal reserves. Yeah. How many times did Jesus go off by himself?
It's like, bye.
He was like, I need a moment.
He only had 12 friends.
Yeah, he only had 12 friends, and sometimes that was
That's a lot.
it's like the Rip Wheeler from Yeltsin, "I don't have the energy for you today."
Mm-mm.
He went up and he had time for himself.
If we had an app for emotional units where it was like a budgeting app and it told you this is how many you have left for today, or it could like notify you like, hey, you're running low.
I
So
my
this
Saint
week,
does it, why can't my
right? I need that because I'm always over. I'm
Mhm.
always like, I got a little more until suddenly I don't, and then I'm like, oh,
Well, it's you gotta set time daily to where you're recharging your emotional units, like
mm-hmm.
journaling or
Yeah.
getting a massage
How do
or
you like
playing music.
what's your favorite way to recharge your emotional units?
Ooh. Well, I get a lot of emotional unit recharge when I help other people.
Mm,
So I literally get to recharge my emotional units at my job.
nice.
And but I mean there's a fine balance because sometimes some ends up taking some and sometimes I just sometimes there's too much give,
Sure.
um but I really enjoy helping people. And so and the pop-ups, doing the pop-up at the end of every month,
Yeah.
I get a huge emotional unit recharge from that because I get to help anywhere from 5 to 8 local women business owners further their business and get more exposure. And then I just get so happy because I get to help other people.
I'm sure it's like physically draining, but physically draining doesn't necessarily mean emotional draining.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, and the day after the pop-up, I hibernate.
Good.
The only time I get out of bed is to pick up my Uber Eats from the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my emotional units, I have surplus, and that's important. You've got to do those things to protect yourself. And I think that that's something that I mean I don't know what the Christian kids are getting taught now, but 20 years ago, that's not what we were getting taught. We were getting taught to give and give and give and give.
Yep.
And give with a joyful heart
Yeah.
and just to continue on and continue on. And I recognize now that that is a recipe for burnout. And it's not good for anybody.
No. I mean, in some ways, it's good for like the people who want to make decisions for us because then we're too tired
Mhm.
to make the choices that are going to be better for our lives and worse for them.
Mhm.
But that's a whole different
Yeah. That's a whole different
rabbit
podcast.
hole. Um, do you have any spiritual practices now that um have kind of evolved after this whole
Shenanigans
from
a-
everything?
and or
Yeah.
fuckery. Um well, now my relationship with God is so much more real. Like, I think before that, I mean, granted, I thought I was a Christian and I wasn't, which is a weird thing to say, but uh, it's almost like voting.
Right.
Like, I could say that I am for a particular candidate, and I can say I am for them. I can have all the stickers, I can have all the T-shirts, but if I don't ever actually go place a vote, I am not doing anything. And I think that's what my Christian life was before,
Mm.
especially because I thought I was already a Christian. So I wasn't looking at, did I ever make the decision to say, hey, I'm tired of being Lord of my life and I'll let you, yeah, Jesus take the wheel kind of a situation. I'd never had that moment. I didn't think I needed to.
Yeah.
That's all. That's another podcast for the lies that we believe that separate us from the truth. So it almost felt like posturing, you know? I would go on these retreats and we'd go all these pretty places with like lakes and there's music and we're supposed to connect and I'm sitting there with my unmedicated ADHD brain like 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. Da, 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 da. Oh, this is really pretty. Thank you, guy, for this pretty stuff. And I look over next to me and, 15 feet away at a different alcove is a girl that's also 14, but she's crying her eyes out and smiling. I'm like, that's a cool experience. I don't feel that.
Mm.
But, so I think that now I am no longer trying to recreate the 14-year-old that's crying because of the beauty and the love of Jesus. Like, I am literally just talking to God like, "Hey, this shit really sucks." And it's interesting to think about, so you are a parent.
I am.
You love your child.
Sure do.
How mad would you be if you thought your kid had to speak in pretty words to you all the time?
Oh, I mean, it would be nice at first, but It would get
Yeah,
wow.
there's no relationship,
Right.
you know? And so once I understood that he doesn't care if I cuss at him. He wants me at my authentic self. He wants me to be real. If I am fucking angry, he wants me to be fucking angry because he wants to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way towards my cat. And I can feel that way towards my cat who's not cussing at me in anger.
Right.
But
I mean, cats kind of do.
oh, dude, their ass.
I mean, they don't have to say it, but
Yeah.
you know.
I see your judgment, backpack. And my cat's name is one of them is Backpack. But yeah, but once it was put in the perspective of a parent and child relationship, and I mean, yes, sure, he's God of all and creator of all things, and there's an amount of respect in that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, he's still. Have you ever read The Shack?
I haven't read it, but I
Oh.
want to.
So good. But the wife in it calls God Papa because it creates that familiarity because that's what he was supposed to be. Like. Yes, like, oh, almighty sovereign. Sure, that's pretty, but at the end of the day, what's way more real is, God, I'm fucking mad. This person was mean to me and I can't stab them because it's illegal.
Yeah.
And that's how, if I had kids, that's how I would want them to talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's
Don't
like
don't curtsy. I don't need spiritual. God doesn't want spiritual curtsies.
God's not gonna be like, you was cussed, so cancel out everything you said.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's one of the problems. I think that a lot of times the relationship with God is presented as there should be some spiritual posturing.
Yeah.
You know, there's the groveling. There, are you prone?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's not Henry VIII. We are not in that time period. This is a father wanting to talk to his kid.
If somebody needs to be groveled to, are they omnipotent? Or like I mean, I think if somebody requires that you grovel, that's a power play. Because somebody who is truly powerful doesn't need it. They know, you know.
Well, that, and I don't think he wants it. I think what he wants more than anything is relationship. He wants you to be real.
What is something that you recently unlearned?
Like something I thought was one way and found out it was another.
Yeah, it can be anything. It can be a little thing or a big thing. It can be a practical thing. It could be about life, business, whatever.
Honestly, I think I've just been in such a learning stage of my life. I don't think I've unlearned much. Because it's all been new experiences, like renovating the half of the duplex to make it a massage studio. I learned drywall is heavy, very heavy. But yeah, I don't think I've unlearned anything. Plus, my dad did such a great job of teaching me the word noted and teaching me about emotional units was something that I came up with, but it was definitely because of stuff he taught me.
That did make me think of something else I wanted to ask. And maybe this might also be another episode if it will take too long to dive into. But I know, so it sounds like growing up you had a pretty stable environment, and I'm curious like how much of that contributed to your ability to not be a statistic. Like how many of the people that you encountered in prison who ended up going back did not have parents to like help or give them that advice about being of noted, or like obviously you have done a lot of work yourself. But I'm curious like what having that has done to help your situation. Or is it, if you don't think it has, that's cool too.
I mean, honestly, I think that so my first trip to prison, I had to visit every single weekend. Didn't matter if I was 3 hours away from Denton, Texas, or if I was 1 hour away. My family was there every single week. If I was low on funds for my commissary, they threw a bunch of money on there so I could get my coffee. I could do whatever I needed. Which was absolutely the right choice. I turned myself in. When I got arrested the second time because I relapsed.
Yeah.
Different story. I still got to visit at least once a month because my parents are amazing. And they did a very good job of being good stewards of their emotional units and their finances, because I wasn't fully funded like that. It was like, I mean, you did this.
Yeah.
And so I had to be a much better steward of my coffee money. But knowing that I had that, I think it did play a huge role in, I mean, my confidence and also, even though when I got out, I went to the Salvation Army and then I went to the other house. I don't even think I asked my parents if after the second time if I could move back home. Well, no, I know I didn't because I didn't want to be in Denton.
Yeah.
Because that was too risky. But knowing that they were always there helped. And it's hard because especially when I first got out and I had other people that were getting out, I wanted to be that for them, but also protect. I also have barbed wire electrical fence boundaries. And so it made it hard. I think the only thing that I did do was I picked somebody up from prison and took her to the bus station because I knew I could do that.
Right.
But I had offers. I had questions all the time. I had letters like, "Hey, I just need a little bit of money, or can I stay with you?" And it was hard. It felt like it was going against everything that I believed in to say no.
Yeah.
But again, I think even more so than helping other people, the higher priority is being a good steward of whatever God's given you. And so I had to say, I don't have it to give. I'm good for a trip to the bus station. I'm good for, a round of snacks at 7-Eleven, but also I'm a waitress. So let's go easy on the snacks. You want to go to Dollar Tree, but, being able to give what I can and not let anybody push me further.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's hard. Our upbringing says give everything, but our internal well says I need some too. So it's hard to find that balance.
Yeah. Our upbringing, like both the homeschool church thing, but also as women, I mean, it's all kind of tied in together. And we don't live, like you were saying earlier, we don't live in a society that supports people when they're coming out of the system. Um, I look at European, I'm sure there's problems in European countries that have great prison systems. I'm sure they have other things that are issues, but um, I've just I think there's probably a lot better things that we could be doing.
Oh yes, I may get this wrong. I think it's Portugal. It might not be. It might be a different country. And this was an article I read a couple years ago, so it might have even changed since then. But the article I read a couple years ago, potentially Portugal, they made all drugs legal.
Mm.
But also they're mandated, like there has to be FDA requirements. Like, yes, you can legally buy Molly, but it has been run through the test and it's a reputable dealer. You're not going to accidentally get fentanyl.
Right. Whoa.
And all of it, and it's taxed. And so all of those extra, so there's no more drug arrests. You can now buy them wherever you want, like, almost a vending machine. Like, what do you want? And all of that money went into the prison system to provide people that were there for jobs, for different trades, for actual classes that people want to go to, not classes that people go to just because they don't want to be in the day room.
Yeah.
And their recidivism rates jumped from, I think, 85% return trip to, like 30. So it dropped 50% just from taking the money they got from legalizing drugs and pouring it into the prison system and making sure those people don't go back and making sure those people become upstanding citizens with jobs that are paying taxes and doing well and furthering the country.
Right.
And yeah, let's do that.
If it's mentionable, it's manageable.
Yeah. And if people are going to do drugs, they're going to do drugs.
Right.
Let's give them good drugs that don't have fentanyl.
Yeah.
Let's give them drugs that, if you should only take one and they buy 5, that's on them. But it's the same thing with alcohol.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. Or, even coffee. Like, yeah, coffee is obviously like not going to be quite as aggressive as.
But still, it's still a stimulant.
Yes. And you can really mess your body up if you have too much of it. Um, and I think a lot about how, I guess it's in Canada, in parts of Canada where they've made, and I think they're bringing it into the US, where they've made clinics where you can go and safely get heroin. And it's like, the deaths from heroin have, of course, gone way down from that. Um, and it means that you have the opportunity then, if you're not penalizing the actions or the results, you have the chance to then go in and say, what's the core issue here? Because it's never just about the
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah. So you're hiding from something.
Right.
Let's talk about what emotional units you're trying not to spend. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. You want some heroin? All right. Let's have a group therapy session.
Right. Maybe while you using heroin, you're going to be more to talking about whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? You make it through the first 30 minutes of this session. Here's your drug. But you still got another 30 minutes after it if you want your next drug.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get their skin in it.
Right.
Let's work through what you need. And then when you're ready to say, hey, I don't want heroin anymore. I want the Suboxone. Like, let's wean off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. But let's get some skin in it. Yeah. But we're going to talk about your shit. Let's talk about your mom.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your dad.
Was there, for you, did you have an external motivation, or just like not doing drugs anymore? Or did you find it was pretty internally driven, or?
My external was, if I get arrested again,
Yeah.
my felony count will be in the double digits.
Sure.
And I'll be a third-time offender, which means that I could shoplift and potentially get 25 years tacked on to whatever they give me.
Right.
And that 25 years of habitual, you don't get to parole out early. So, and now that I know who I am, and where my strengths and my weaknesses lie, I know there is no playing for me. There is no, I'll just do a little bit of meth. Right. No. It's like I forget who the comedian was, but she had this great line. She said, yeah, I tried cocaine once for 2 years. That would be me if I I'll just do a little bit of drugs for the weekend and the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Until I get arrested again. So it's a healthy dose of fear.
Right. It's that you've got it's the same brain that was like, I'm a mom now. Let me be the best mom ever and going hard on being a mom. So it's the same thing with drugs or whatever else you do. Yeah. I mean, now you're a really great massage therapist, and you are using, your brain is so powerful, and you're using it for so much good.
I am no longer using it for evil.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Just like all of these things that we think, this would never be me, but it could be you, because our brain sometimes, I guess some people have brains where it doesn't do that, but good for them, I guess.
Good luck at an arts and crafts fair.
I have a very, my brain gets addicted to things. So, and there are so many acceptable things to get addicted to, like caffeine or social media or whatever. And so if you can find that thing for your brain to grasp onto and get really nerdy about and really into, that's awesome.
Amy, you gotta find what works for you. You gotta find ways to replenish your emotional units within your fence boundary.
Right.
And it's different for everybody.
What can give you those dopamine hits with that?
For me, nachos.
Oh.
Nachos is my current dopamine food.
I love nachos.
I know. So I get a food fixation, which apparently I didn't know this until recently is an ADHD thing. Like, it was mozzarella sticks for like 2 years. Bad day, I need some mozzarella sticks. Hi baby.
She wants nachos.
I know. I want nachos always.
Mine's always wings.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I have wings, I'm just like, oh, this.
Oh, especially mango habanero. Get in my mouth. But yeah, so it has evolved from mozzarella sticks to nachos, which I found the best nacho recipe. Oh yes, my sweet girl. Bunch of chips on a baking sheet, and then refried beans in a Ziploc baggie with the tip cut off, so that way I can refried bean every single chip. Oh, and then do the same thing with the Rico cheese. and then sprinkle the whole mess with shredded rotisserie chicken meat,
Mm-hmm.
and then cover it with grated cheese and throw it in the oven until it all melts, and then
Sounds pretty great.
food coma.
Now I'm hungry.
I know.
Great. What is something recently that made you the happiest?
Ooh, well, I mean, it wasn't recent. It was a couple months ago, but realizing that I was 2 days away from 90 days open, and I had hit 100 clients, was the coolest feeling in the world, because that's not typical. And a lot of it is Oak Cliff Ladies Club and trying to support other women and local businesses, and then also word of mouth. That was amazing.
What is your hottest take?
Like my snapshot of life right now.
Your hottest take on any subject. It could be about, I mean,
Honestly, but the thing that I tell be a good steward of your emotional units, because you're the only one that can spend them. You can give them out, but you're the only one that can spend them. And if you don't have your fence up and you're not keeping enough for yourself, you're the only one that suffers. And when you're suffering, then you have less emotional units to help other people. So if you think you're doing the right thing by just helping other people and just pouring and pouring and pouring, you're actually hurting, because you're going to run out and you're going to have nothing to give to anybody else that is now expecting it.
And now somebody else is going to need their emotional units to help you back up. Well, this was delightful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we got to do a podcast together. I need a timeline. I need to finish this thing. Thanks for joining us, and have a wonderful day, and see you next time.
That, and fortify your own personal boundary fence.
Yes.
And be a good steward of your emotional units.
Yes. And don't do math.
And don't do meth. There you go. That's it. That's the one.